The lottery curse, myth, mystery, or human nature?
Winning the lottery is the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Those haunting words were reportedly spoken by Billy Bob Harold Jr., a Texas man who won a $31 million Lotto Texas jackpot in 1997. At first glance, the statement seems impossible. How could becoming an instant millionaire be the worst thing that ever happened to someone? Yet Harrell's story has become one of the most enduring examples of what people call the lottery curse. The unsettling belief that extraordinary fortune often brings extraordinary misery. It's a story we've heard many times. The jackpot winner who ends up bankrupt. The family torn apart by greed. The millionaire murdered for his fortune. The smiling face on television that, only a few years later, returns to the headlines for all the wrong reasons. These stories have become so familiar that many people have begun to wonder whether winning the lottery is really a blessing at all. But is there truly such a thing as a lottery curse? Or are these stories revealing something far deeper, not about money itself, but about human nature? A curse born from headlines. Imagine checking your lottery ticket on an ordinary morning. Only moments earlier, you were worrying about grocery bills, the mortgage payment, or whether your aging car would survive another winter. Then you compare the numbers one last time. Every number matches. Your heart begins to pound. In an instant, your life changes forever. Family members cry with joy. Friends rush to congratulate you. Television crews gather outside your home. Your phone rings without stopping. Complete strangers suddenly know your name. It feels like the happiest day of your life. Yet history suggests that this moment, the moment everyone dreams about, can also become the beginning of life's greatest challenge. The legend of the lottery curse is easy to understand, because bad news travels faster than good news. When someone wins hundreds of millions of dollars and quietly lives a happy, comfortable life, it rarely becomes front-page news. But when a lottery winner loses everything, becomes involved in scandal, or suffers an unimaginable tragedy, newspapers and television stations eagerly tell the story. Over time, those dramatic exceptions begin to look like the rule. When luck turned dark. Perhaps no story illustrates the legend better than Jack Whittaker. In 2002, the successful West Virginia businessman won a staggering $314.9 million Powerball jackpot, one of the largest prizes in American history. Ironically, Whittaker was already wealthy before buying the winning ticket. Friends assumed the prize would simply make a good life even better. Instead, his life became a heartbreaking series of tragedies. Large sums of cash were stolen from his car and office. Lawsuits followed. Then came losses no fortune could ever repair. His beloved granddaughter died from a drug overdose. Later, his daughter also passed away. In interviews years later, Whittaker repeatedly said he wished he had torn up the winning ticket instead of cashing it. His story became one of the most famous examples of the so-called lottery curse. Another heartbreaking case was Abraham Shakespeare, a truck driver's assistant from Florida, who won $30 million in the state lottery. Friends described him as generous almost to a fault. When people asked for help, he rarely refused. He bought homes for relatives. He handed out money to friends. Unfortunately, generosity made him vulnerable. A woman named Doris D. Moore offered to manage his finances and protect him from the endless stream of people asking for money. Prosecutors later argued that she gained control of what remained of his fortune before murdering him. Months later, investigators found Shakespeare's body buried beneath a concrete slab. His dream ended in unimaginable tragedy. Not every lottery tragedy ends in violence. Sometimes it unfolds quietly, almost unnoticed. Consider Evelyn Adams, whose story sounds almost impossible. She won the New Jersey lottery twice. Against astronomical odds, fortune smiled on her not once but 2 times. Yet over the years, much of her fortune disappeared. Adams later acknowledged that gambling played a significant role in losing much of what she had won. Her story reminds us that the dangers of sudden wealth are not always dramatic. Sometimes they arrive one small decision at a time. Another tragic case was Jeffrey Dampier, who won $20 million in the Illinois lottery. Known for his generosity, Dampier helped family members, started a successful gourmet popcorn business, and seemed to enjoy sharing his good fortune. Then, in 2005, he was kidnapped and murdered during a dispute involving his sister-in-law and her boyfriend. His fortune had made him wealthy. It had also made him vulnerable. The saddest story may belong to Billy Bob Harold Jr., whose quotation opened this article. Unlike many famous lottery winners, Harold didn't begin by spending recklessly. He bought homes for relatives. He donated generously to his church. He helped anyone who asked. But the requests never stopped. Friends appeared with financial emergencies. Relatives expected more. Strangers somehow found him. The pressure became relentless. His marriage collapsed under the strain, and less than 2 years after winning the lottery, Harold took his own life. According to the Houston Press, shortly before his death, he told his financial advisor,
Winning the lottery is the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Those words have echoed through newspaper stories, documentaries, and countless discussions about the lottery curse ever since. Across the Atlantic, Michael Carroll became Britain's most notorious lottery winner. After winning nearly £10 million, the young former garbage collector plunged into a reckless lifestyle of drugs, gambling, luxury cars, alcohol, and endless parties. Within a few years, the fortune was gone. Carroll eventually returned to work, including a period as a refuse collector, later reflecting that the money had done him far more harm than good. Stories like these are unforgettable. They read almost like modern morality tales. They are dramatic, heartbreaking, impossible to ignore. But are they typical? Or are they simply the stories that survive because they are the most extraordinary?
But is there really a curse? Here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. When journalists and researchers looked beyond the headlines, they discovered something that challenged almost everything people thought they knew about lottery winners. In 2026, USA Today tracked 31 publicly identified Powerball winners, who had each won jackpots exceeding $50 million between 2012 and 2016. By then, every winner had lived with extraordinary wealth for at least a decade. The reporters expected to uncover evidence supporting the famous lottery curse. Instead, they found something very different. Most winners were financially secure. Several had established charitable foundations. Others quietly donated millions to hospitals, schools, community organizations, theaters, and medical research. Only a small number experienced the kinds of spectacular downfalls that dominate public imagination. There was another reason the findings surprised people. Many successful lottery winners simply disappear from public view. They change phone numbers, move to quieter neighborhoods, decline interviews, live ordinary lives with extraordinary bank accounts. Psychologists call this survivor bias. The winners whose lives remain peaceful rarely become news stories. The few whose lives collapse become documentaries, tabloid headlines, and cautionary tales. Over time, we begin mistaking the loudest stories for the most common ones. Perhaps the lottery curse owes as much to selective attention as it does to reality. The myth of the 70%. Perhaps you've heard the claim that 70% of lottery winners go bankrupt within a few years. It's repeated so often that many people accept it without question. The problem is that no reliable evidence supports it. Financial experts have searched for the origin of the statistic for years without success. Even organizations that have been mistakenly credited with publishing it have publicly stated they cannot verify the claim. Ironically, the myth has become so widely repeated that many people assume it must be backed by research, even though no credible source has been able to trace where it began. Research paints a very different picture. A large study of Florida lottery winners found that bankruptcy among winners was relatively uncommon. Other long-term studies found that many winners continued working, invested carefully, and spent their money gradually rather than recklessly. If the famous 70% statistic isn't true, what else have we misunderstood about sudden wealth? Can money actually make you happier? For generations, we've been told that money can't buy happiness. It's one of those sayings we rarely question. It sounds wise. It feels comforting. But what if it isn't entirely true? Economists and psychologists have spent years asking a surprisingly simple question: what really happens after someone wins millions of dollars? The answer turned out to be far more encouraging than popular wisdom suggests. One long-term study of Swedish lottery winners followed participants for more than a decade. Researchers expected the excitement of becoming rich to fade quickly, leaving winners no happier than before. Instead, they found something quite different. People who won large prizes reported lasting increases in life satisfaction, not just for a few months, but for years afterward. They experienced greater financial security, less day-to-day stress, and more freedom to spend time doing what mattered most to them. Interestingly, most winners did not quit working altogether. Many simply reduced their hours, chose more enjoyable work, or devoted more time to family, hobbies, and travel. Their happiness did not come from luxury itself, but from having more control over their lives. Money, it turns out, didn't magically solve every problem, but it removed many of the problems that money can solve. Freedom from constant financial anxiety is no small gift. So why do some winners fall apart? If money itself isn't cursed, why do some lives unravel so dramatically? Psychologists point to something called sudden wealth syndrome. Imagine waking up tomorrow with more money than you could spend in several lifetimes. Would you know whom to trust? Would you tell your friends? Would you quit your job? How would you decide which relatives to help and which requests to refuse? Most people spend their lives learning how to manage ordinary incomes. Almost no one is prepared to manage extraordinary wealth overnight. That is where the real challenge begins. Lottery winners around the world describe remarkably similar experiences. Their phones ring constantly. Long-lost relatives suddenly remember birthdays. Old classmates reappear with exciting business proposals. Charities ask for donations. Investment advisors promise remarkable returns. Complete strangers write emotional letters, explaining why they deserve financial help. Susan Brands, a Missouri Powerball winner, described the experience bluntly. When you win the lottery, you become a target. That simple sentence may explain more about the so-called lottery curse than any statistic ever could. Notice something important. None of these problems are caused by the money itself. They arise from the way people, including the winner, respond to it. Money isn't the disease. It's the magnifying glass. When character meets opportunity, history suggests that sudden wealth rarely creates a new personality. Instead, it reveals the one that was already there. A generous person often becomes more generous. An impulsive spender may simply spend on a much larger scale. Someone with wisdom tends to make wiser decisions. Someone with poor judgment now has far more opportunities to make expensive mistakes. The lottery doesn't rewrite character. It places character under a brighter spotlight. Consider Roy Cockrum. Before winning a $260 million Powerball jackpot, Cockrum had spent years working in the theater. Long before he became wealthy, he dreamed of helping American stage productions become more ambitious. Winning the lottery gave him the opportunity. According to USA Today, Cockrum devoted roughly half of his after-tax winnings to establishing a charitable foundation that has since awarded tens of millions of dollars in grants to theatrical productions across the United States. The Smith family of New Jersey made a similar choice. Rather than disappearing behind the gates of a luxury estate, they invested in the city where generations of their family had lived. Through their foundation, they have donated millions of dollars to schools, churches, youth programs, scholarships, and nonprofit organizations, helping strengthen the community that shaped them. Other winners have quietly funded cancer research, supported food banks, established scholarships, and transformed entire communities through charitable giving. These stories rarely become documentaries. Generosity seldom makes sensational headlines. Why we want to believe in the curse. Perhaps the greatest mystery isn't whether the lottery curse exists. Perhaps it's why so many of us want it to. Imagine your neighbor wins a $300 million jackpot. Your first reaction might be excitement. Your second might be envy. Then someone says, "Don't worry. Lottery winners usually end up miserable." Suddenly, the news feels easier to accept. Psychologists have a name for this way of thinking. It's called the just world hypothesis, our tendency to believe that life eventually balances the scales. If someone receives an extraordinary blessing, we instinctively expect an equally extraordinary burden to follow. Otherwise, the world doesn't seem fair. The lottery curse fits that belief perfectly. It reassures us that wealth must carry a hidden punishment. There is another psychological force at work. It's called Schadenfreude, a German word describing the uncomfortable satisfaction people sometimes feel when someone else's success turns into failure. Most of us would never admit to enjoying another person's misfortune, yet stories about wealthy people losing everything consistently attract enormous public attention, perhaps because they reassure us that life has somehow restored its balance. The media understands this instinct. A headline reading, "Lottery winner lives quietly for 20 years and donates to Children's Hospital," is unlikely to attract millions of readers. But one that reads, "Lottery millionaire loses everything, travels around the world," that doesn't mean the tragedy is typical. It simply means tragedy is more memorable than contentment. The real lottery curse. So, is the lottery curse real? Perhaps, but not in the way people imagine. The stories that haunt us were never really about money. They were about ordinary people suddenly handed extraordinary freedom, impossible choices, overwhelming temptation, and responsibilities they had never expected to carry. A lottery ticket doesn't change human nature. It reveals it. Under the bright spotlight of sudden wealth, generosity becomes more visible. So do greed, fear, loneliness, impulsiveness, wisdom. The jackpot simply magnifies whatever was already there. That is why some winners build charities while others destroy their finances. Some strengthen their families while others lose them. Some discover a deeper purpose while others discover only emptiness. In the end, millions of dollars are neither heroes nor villains. They are only the amplifier. The real story has never been the money. The real story has always been the person holding the ticket. And perhaps that is the only mystery that was ever worth solving.
It's time to study new words in context. 1. Enduring. Definition: lasting for a long time, continuing without ending. Example: her love for her family remained enduring throughout her life. 2. Unsettling. Definition: making someone feel worried, nervous, or uncomfortable. Example: the strange silence in the house was unsettling. 3. Misery. Definition: great sadness, pain, or suffering. Example: after losing his job, he lived in misery for several months. 4. Astronomical. Definition: extremely large or much bigger than normal. Example: the winner received an astronomical amount of money. 5. Dispute. Definition: a serious argument or disagreement between people. Example: the brothers had a dispute over their father's property. 6. Vulnerable. Definition: easy to hurt, harm, or trick. Example: young children are more vulnerable to danger than adults. 7. Relentless. Definition: continuing without stopping or becoming weaker. Example: the relentless rain lasted for 3 days. 8. Refuse. Noun. Definition: garbage or unwanted things that people throw away. Example: the city collects refuse from homes every week. Refuse. Verb. Definition: to say no to something or not accept it. Example: she decided to refuse the offer because it was unfair. 9. Unravel. Definition: to slowly fall apart or become worse. Example: his plans began to unravel after he lost his job. 10. Bluntly. Definition: in a direct way, without trying to be polite or gentle. Example: she bluntly told him that he was making a mistake. 11. Impulsiveness. Definition: the habit of acting quickly without thinking carefully. Example: his impulsiveness often caused him to make poor decisions.
Comprehension questions. 1. What is the lottery curse? Answer. The lottery curse is the belief that winning a large lottery prize often leads to unhappiness, financial problems, or personal tragedy. 2. Why does the author begin the article with Billy Bob Harold Jr.'s quotation? Answer. The quotation grabs the reader's attention because it seems surprising that someone who won millions of dollars would call it the worst thing that ever happened to him. 3. What happened to Jack Whittaker after he won the lottery? Answer. He experienced thefts, lawsuits, and heartbreaking family tragedies. Later, he said he wished he had torn up the winning ticket. 4. Why did Abraham Shakespeare become vulnerable after winning the lottery? Answer. He was very generous and trusted the wrong people, which allowed someone to take advantage of him and eventually murder him. 5. What lesson does Evelyn Adams' story teach? Answer. It shows that poor habits, such as gambling, can cause people to lose even a large fortune. 6. According to the article, what did the USA Today investigation discover about most lottery winners? Answer. It found that most winners lived financially stable lives, and many donated money to charities or helped their communities. 7. What is survivor bias? Answer. Survivor bias is the tendency to notice only the dramatic stories, while ignoring the many ordinary success stories. 8. Why is the famous 70% of lottery winners go bankrupt claim considered a myth? Answer. Because no reliable research has been able to prove or verify where the statistic came from. 9. What did the Swedish lottery study find? Answer. It found that many lottery winners enjoyed higher life satisfaction for many years after winning. 10. What is sudden wealth syndrome? Answer. It is the emotional and psychological stress that some people experience after suddenly becoming very wealthy. 11. According to the article, why do many lottery winners become targets? Answer. Because relatives, friends, strangers, and scammers often ask them for money or try to take advantage of their wealth. 12. What does the author mean by saying that money is the magnifying glass? Answer. The author means that money does not change a person's character, but makes their strengths and weaknesses more noticeable. 13. What is the just world hypothesis? Answer. It is the belief that life should be fair, so people often expect good fortune to be balanced by bad fortune. 14. According to the article, why do stories about lottery disasters receive more attention than stories about successful winners? Answer. Because dramatic tragedies attract more media attention and are easier for people to remember than quiet success stories. 15. What is the main message of the article? Answer. The article argues that money itself is not a curse. Instead, sudden wealth reveals a person's character and magnifies the choices they make. Discussion question optional. If you suddenly won a $100 million lottery jackpot, what do you think would be the biggest challenge? Managing the money, dealing with other people, or something else? Explain your answer. Sample answer. I think the biggest challenge would be dealing with other people. It would be difficult to know whom to trust, and many people might ask me for money. I would try to stay private and get advice from trustworthy financial experts before making any big decisions.